A lot of students are signing up for multiple weeks so that they're building off of that. So that's been really nice. And I think filling a void, especially now that a lot of camps are closed, these online virtual classes are providing just another resource for families when there aren't a lot of resources right now.
Welcome back to People, Passion, Power. Today, my guests today are, well, there's no better way to say it than they are timely, as I've got 3 children myself, and these 2 fine individuals have taken it upon themselves to start an online tutoring platform for kids of what ages, guys?
All ages. We service kids in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade.
Perfect. And that is my longtime friend, JoAnn Hill, right there. And she's joining me with Liz Kramer, and they are the founders of Capital Teachers and 2 former DC public school teachers. And you guys came up with this idea when? How did Capital Teachers come about here?
It's interesting because we actually came up with the idea a long time ago. Liz and I have worked together for 7 years. We've both been teachers over 17 years. And over the last year or so, we talked about what the next step would be in our career. And so at the beginning of this school year, Liz decided to move to Virginia with her family. And so she had already known that she was going to be leaving DC Public Schools to move to Virginia and was going to be leaving the classroom. And so that got us thinking a little bit more. Since Liz and I had spoken about possibly moving on to the next step, we started thinking about what is the next step. And I was also ready to take my career to a different level. And so we talked, we met, and we decided to open up this tutoring company. We made that decision actually at the very beginning of the year in January. And our intention was to open up and launch this tutoring company when school was out. So in the summertime. And then with everything that happened, and when schools basically shifted to distance learning in March, we decided to launch it a lot earlier because we saw the need for it. And so it was a plan in the making for a long time, but it was expedited given the current circumstances.
Do you offer an online course for how to deal with your kids when you're trying to distance learn? I'll sign up for that right now. I'm just saying.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: your timing is perfect with this, and you guys expedited it. What are you hearing from parents? What are they experiencing right now? I'm sure everybody can relate to what my wife and I are going through, and how are you guys working it through, and how are you envisioning your curriculum to kind of solve some of these needs and these gaps?
Yeah, well, Jason, I'm also a parent. I have 3 kids myself, all elementary school age. So while we were doing distance learning, I was trying to teach my 3rd grade class and also help survive the day. I mean, really, all parents were really in survival mode. And JoAnn and I knew that, and we thought, well, what can we do to help students? There were months lost of school, and while teachers did their absolute best to, keep in touch with students, do recorded lessons daily, meet with different groups of students throughout the day, there was time and learning lost because kids were not in schools. The magic of teaching happens when you're sitting one-on-one with your teacher and small groups with your teacher. And unfortunately, with distance learning, there was not so much of that time. So we thought, what could we do to help? And of course, we work one-on-one with families. Everything that we offer is completely a customized learning plan. So there are families that contact us and say, my child just needs help in math. They missed the last couple of months of instruction with their teacher. We just want to make sure they're maintaining their 3rd grade math, to be ready for 4th grade. Or we've had families contact us and say, we're just looking for extensions for our child. While they were able to do all of the curriculum that was given to them at home, there wasn't really any of the extension or enrichment projects that they looked forward to in school. So we meet with each family before we select a tutor for them to see what they need, and then we customize a plan for them. So we do the one-on-one. We also do small group classes. We could talk more about that. But really everything we do is customized to that particular child.
Is that the connection point? Is it going small? And I'll give you a real life example. I listened in on one of my daughter's classes, and we'll go in the weeds a little bit if you guys don't mind. And I know you're loyal and you have friends that are public school teachers. So this isn't about that, but I think it will be beneficial to have a real conversation. When you're trying to distance learn with 15 and 20 students, let's call it what it is. It's borderline impossible to teach and to learn. Right?
I don't know if I would say impossible, but there are different challenges, right? And so, listen, teaching is a challenging job regardless, right? And so teaching in person presents challenges, but distance learning presented all brand new challenges that teachers were really obviously not prepared for, but learned to adapt. So, if you think about March 13th is when schools, at least in DC, closed and shifted to distance learning. And within a week, we were on all these technology platforms and learning Zoom and learning Microsoft Teams and learning Blackboard and learning all these different systems. So in the beginning, at least I can speak for myself, I was so fixated on learning just how to use the technology because I wasn't used to using those platforms. And then getting my lessons out, right? And so, but it was a learning curve, and it took at least a week or two, and we had to iron out a lot of kinks, right? And we came from a very, very, very proficient school, a very successful school, and we, of course, had challenges, and I'm sure other schools face those challenges as well. But yes, I think recording lessons ahead of time and having kids sit and watching lessons, because we would offer live instruction and we would do small group instruction, but there were challenges with families not always being able to attend live group instruction because they may have had one or two devices at home and both parents are working and so forth, right? And so we shifted to a lot of pre-recorded lessons, which for a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old to sit in front of the computer and watch a lesson where it's recorded is just not the same as being in a classroom, right? So there were a lot of challenges. Were we able to execute instruction? Yes, of course. Was it the same level as if we were in the classroom? No, absolutely not. There's just so many other factors and so many things that we're missing that, especially in the younger grades in elementary school and obviously middle school and high school as well, but so much of education and so much of a development of a child is not just academic, it's also social and interaction and so forth. And that dynamic was pretty much lost, right? If you're not in your community with, in class and together, you're missing that level or that layer that's needed in education.
So you guys were ahead of it. It's not like you predicted COVID, as no one did. What's your big challenge with the public school system? And again, we're not trying to make somebody look bad or make the school system look bad, but this idea came about prior. What challenges do you guys see with the public school systems?
Well, I'm not sure a challenge. Like JoAnn said, we came from a really highly functioning school with really, really dedicated teachers. But so much of teaching, it has to be differentiated, meaning you are meeting the needs of students wherever they are. And I know in my classroom this year, I had a third grade classroom, I had students reading from a first grade level to a sixth grade level and trying to make sure that I'm meeting those needs when you have 25, 26 kids in front of you. That's tough. I mean, and I've been teaching for 17 years and I feel like it took me at least a few years, to make sure I was able to meet the needs of everyone, not just delivering a one size fits all lesson. That will never work. And any good teacher knows that. But that's why when JoAnn says that teaching is challenging, it's because teachers are trying to meet the needs of so many students in front of them. And it's a really, really challenging thing to do if you're going to do it well.
So on the distance learning component of it, with that piece, how do you connect with the students? Like, we're connecting right now, but how do you get in there and connect with the students? Is it connectivity as strong as it would be in person, one-on-one?
Are you referring to in a classroom education or
no,
like
in your curriculum and with your distance learning, your virtual tutoring? How are you going to be able to connect with your students?
That's a great question. So, so I've been working with a couple of students, and I can say I've known some of the students before, and that, of course, having that existing relationship helps a lot. But I've worked with a student who I've never worked with before, and I think in the very beginning, like working on building a relationship, right? And so, and it's the same thing that we do in school, right? A lot of times in school, you dive into academics within the second week, the third week, the fourth week, right? And you're developing relationships, you're developing expectations and so forth, but it's the same thing in this model. So getting to know the child or the children you're working with first as people and not just students, right? And so before I work with any student academically, the first 5 minutes is always like, what did you do today? How was your weekend? What was the best part of your day? What was the most challenging part of your day? And I share those things too, so that we get to know each other on a personal level, right? And doing some ice-breaking activities, maybe incorporating a game. Also, I know a lot of our tutors, what they do is they email families prior to working with the children, and they ask questions like, what is your child's favorite sport? What's your child's favorite subject? So that he or she already has an idea a little bit about the child before working with them, and then they can start building on those relationships. So I think building the relationships first, and then the academics or the supports and the extensions, that comes next, right? But without the solid foundation, it's very hard to get that buy-in.
So tell me a little bit about who the tutors will be. It doesn't sound like it will be yourself and Liz necessarily. Who are the tutors? Where do they come from?
Yep.
We have the most fabulous group of teachers. We're so excited about all of the teachers that we're working with. We're saying tutors, but they're all teachers. And we are working with, we right now have 15 teachers on board, and they're K through high school level. And really who we have is like the most important part of our company to us, because that, like what JoAnn was just explaining about getting to know a child, that's something that every good teacher knows. And so all of our teachers know that. They know to build relationships with kids. They know to find out exactly where kids are with different assessments, and then learning about the child, and then preparing instruction from that point. And because we've hired such fabulous people, it's working. We've had, we're working right now with about 20 families with one-on-one tutoring, and we've heard nothing but, you know, excitement and praise from families about the teachers that they're working with. And so we can't be more excited about that.
Yeah, and I think if I could just add on to that, in the very beginning when we launched our company, Liz and I, the first thing that we did was when we started hiring teachers, Liz and I attended every interview together. Initially we were thinking, well, we can kind of like divide and conquer and we can interview teachers separately. But we thought, no, the people who we hire, that's our team, right? And Jason, I'm sure that you can vouch for that. You have a team who work with you. The people who you work with, your team, they're your greatest asset. And so Liz and I, we of course, we did Zoom calls, Google Hangouts and so forth with the teachers we hired. We got to know them, we interviewed them together, and then we made sure that we hired the best individuals, because yes, Liz and I do some tutoring, but of course we wanted to have tutors from a range. So if there's a family who needs help with a child who's 4 years old, Liz and I are not going to work with that child, right? Like we work with the upper grade students. And so we have a number of teachers who we can choose from to work in early childhood, going to middle school, high school, and so forth. So just making sure that our team was strong, that's made all the difference.
So tell me a little bit about the curriculum. It seems like a pretty wide range.
Yeah. So when you say curriculum, we don't offer a specific curriculum. What we do is we offer different assessments that we'll do with kids if the families choose. For instance, we offer an assessment called IXL Diagnostic, and then that can help pinpoint specific levels for students in math and language arts. And then teachers have a whole host of assessments that they use in the classroom and also use with their tutoring students. Like JoAnn said, we would never pair a fifth grade teacher with a kindergarten level student. So we're really careful about who we match. And then from there, they customize a plan. They also will contact the classroom teacher of that student. They'll talk to the student's family. So from that, they will build the instruction. But what we do offer are online small group classes that are capped at 4. So we can tell you all about those if that's what you were referring to.
I'm referring to it all. I'm ready to throw everybody
All right,
into
all of it.
everything. I just need really what I need at a high level is accountability, because that's where I see the gap with the online learning in the format that is presented for our particular county and public schools. The accountability piece just has seemed to disappear. And as we get into the fall, I'm viewing this, and JoAnn can tell you, my wife and I are probably going to utilize your guys' services for some, if not all, of our children. I'm going to utilize it as an accountability spot, and tell me if I'm wrong or if I shouldn't be looking at it this way. It's a good opportunity for you guys to dive in with me. But we're looking at it like they're going to have their standard learning, and then we're going to bring in a tutor to almost hold them accountable for the tasks they need to do and add on to what they're doing. So I'm not sure how everybody's going to view it, but that's the piece I think that I miss the most, is just the accountability. It's gone.
Absolutely. And I think of like my 5th grade son who would sit upstairs all day long, very busy till 1 in the afternoon, but I didn't have time to check in with him to know whether he was doing things or not. And, so we've had so many families contact us. I mean, I think a lot of times when you think of tutoring, you think, oh, it's children who need help or extra support. And actually we found that most of the families we're working with right now are families who are just like, help during distance learning and also help make sure my kids are learning over the summer to be ready for the next grade. So I'm thinking of one family we worked with in particular where he was, his parents said, his teacher's assigning writing assignments and he's giving back 1 sentence and then going on his merry way. And, they were not okay with that. But this son was like, oh, the teacher said it was okay, and that was it. But so the tutor that was working with him, they set up a Google Drive and they're able to write and work on things together and really grow his writing. And she contacted a teacher to say like, okay, what is he supposed to be doing? He's supposed to be writing about the American Revolution. How many supports should he have to back up his reasoning? And because she was a teacher, that was a very easy thing to put in place and check in. And then the parents also had access to that Google Drive so they could see what the tutor was working on with the child each week. And so yes, definitely that accountability of just making sure kids are moving, because I know my kids will do bare minimum if someone is not pushing them to the next step.
Yep, absolutely.
And if people want to track you guys down, Capital Teachers, where are we going to find you?
So we are on, our website is capitalteachers.com. There you'll find one-on-one tutoring, and we also, our classes. Can we talk a little bit about our classes? Do we have time?
We got time. Rip through it.
Excellent. Well, one of the things that we noticed, so initially we were looking mostly at one-on-one tutoring. And then we also, because students were not in the classroom, a lot of families kind of craved that setting where their child could work with other students, but in a very small group setting. So as Liz mentioned, we started offering online classes that are classes that are capped at 4, and they're for a grade band or an age band, or band, I should say. So for example, we have a creative writing class, we have a French class coming up, we have art, we have yoga, we have persuasive writing, we have book clubs. And so we're going into inventions and journalism, all different topics. And so these classes they're kind of like enrichment classes, but they're also offer an opportunity that if you don't necessarily want your child to do a one-on-one every week, but you want your student learning, let's say, persuasive writing skills, we have a great class that is you become a movie or TV critic, and the teacher and the students will devise a list of pre-approved movies to watch, and then they learn about how to be a critic and how to write persuasive reviews. And so they're incorporating all of the skills required for persuasive writing, coming up with a strong claim, backing it up with reasons and evidence, using transitional phrases, writing in paragraphs. And so although it may not be one-on-one tutoring, it's a class and it will meet every day. There's also other students in the class. The students are learning from one another, they're engaging, they're interacting, they're sharing their work. And that's, most of our tutors, they do that all in a Google Drive. So what's nice is they're all typing at the same time. The tutor will share his or her screen. But then, like you said, the accountability, then the drive, that Google document is shared with parents. So parents can see what their student is working on. It's all saved and it's all available. And then a lot of students are signing up for multiple weeks so that they're building off of that. So that's been really nice. And I think filling a void, especially now that a lot of camps are closed, these online virtual classes are providing just another resource for families when there aren't a lot of resources right now. And we're talking right now about when the school year starts back up again, what that looks like. Who knows? It may be hybrid. It might be all distance learning. It might be in person. But I'm assuming after school programs will probably look a little different, right? And so how do we keep those online classes available and open? That if a family who relies on enrichment or after school programs and those programs no longer exist or they look different, that they have that option to have different classes for different grade levels as well.
So I heard yoga in there. Did I hear that correctly?
You heard yoga, although I am not leading the yoga class. We have a wonderful teacher who is. Yeah, all the baking. Jason, you should sign up for some of these classes.
Anything that involves the kitchen, I'm not interested in. I can't do cooking. I can't bake. I can't cook. I can't do any of that stuff. So when, and we talked earlier, does this evolve into something beyond tutoring? Is that your guys' vision for it? What does, or is it only tutoring? Not that that's not enough. What's your vision for Capital Teachers?
Listen, we are adaptable. And I think, like JoAnn said, we were originally just going to do the one-on-one tutoring when we envisioned this company to begin with. And then right away, we saw a need for these small group classes. And within, a week or two, we got these classes up and running, and we've been running them since April. And so we're now building on our online classes just for July. JoAnn talked about lots of different classes, but we also have a whole host of coding classes where Minecraft and Roblox and YouTube is another one, not coding, but just we're trying to get different hooks with kids to get them interested, but all of our classes have an educational component as well. So right now we're focusing on the classes, but we're still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen in the fall. I mean, like everyone, but if there is a need, and I'm sure there will be, especially if it's not in person, we are going to be thinking of ways to fill that need. We know we have a great team, and so we can really pivot in any way that we need to.
Very, very exciting. And so tell me again where we're going to find you guys. Sorry, I got ahead of myself earlier, but go for it.
We are
capitalteachers.com.
Say it again. We'll put it there on the bottom of the screen.
capitalteachers.com, and on our website are our email addresses, our phone numbers, every way possible to contact us. Our virtual classes are there, our tutoring information is there. So our website is pretty much the best place to start and then to go from there.
Got it. So if you guys are watching, JoAnn is somebody that I've known for such a long time. She used to be my neighbor when we first moved into the city, and that was back in, good gosh, JoAnn, what year was that?
I want to say it was 2004 because my husband and I got married in 2005, and so it was right before we got married. We bought our first condo across the hall from you guys.
Yep. So all that's to let you know that I would trust my children with JoAnn, and if she's as good of friends with Liz as I envision, I would trust Liz as well. So, well, first of all, thank you guys for putting this out there. I'm excited for your business. It sounds like it's already taken flight, and your timing, I think, is impeccable. Your offerings in terms of your enrichment classes or your small groups, all of it matches up, all of it resonates with me, and I'm sure it will resonate with quite a few parents. So thank you for coming on the show, and I look forward to following up with you guys. And I'll be knocking. I just need that full schedule for my kids. We're going to figure this all out.
We're going to get it for you. And Jason, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it. This was wonderful. This was so great.
Yes. Well, we appreciate you being on. JoAnn and Liz, founders of Capital Teachers. Sign your kid up for something. I think you'll be happy you did so. Thank you guys. People, passion, power. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye.